Heck yes, I'm so excited to show you guys this. This is Spawn the Compendium. Can't pronounce that right. Nope. Volume 3 of Spawn here. Collecting the 50 issues of Gen 101 through 150 here. Loving this picture of Spawn up in here. And I'm sorry about this razor mark here from my comic book shop. This was the nicest issue they had, and I didn't want to risk Amazon bringing me a copy. But yeah, loving this right here. Printed through Image. Cover's done by Greg Capullo. Cover price of $60. Here's the ISBN if you guys want it, and the UPC. If you guys don't know where to get this, Amazon, whole bunch of other comic places like cheap graphic novels, in stock trades, things like that. They do have this book. This book was awesome. We do get a straight continuation from the end of Volume 2. Obviously, if you guys do not know, Spawn did kill Malboga, and we're dealing with that. Here are the credits of people involved in the book. Jumping into issue 101 here, stuff gets really sad and intense right away. And I was really pissed off at Spawn at first when I was reading through this because he's becoming a different man. Throughout the entire stories too, Cog is constantly telling him how much he was losing his humanity. And he's no longer really... Even though he says he's not Al Simmons, he's just no longer even wants to even try to be. And you can see that in this issue here as he is trying to make Granny not believe in God anymore and just kind of give up on all of her hope and what she believes in, even though Spawn, she tells Spawn, like, there's a reason why you were sent down here from God, and I believe that for a reason, and no one's going to tell me how I change about my feelings. And even coming on more down towards the story, when she gets done confronting with that, Cog even ends up telling him, like, dude, you're making a big fucking mistake here. Like, why are you fucking doing this? You're not who you are anymore. I don't like who you're becoming. Here we get some more confrontation with Mamim talking to Thea here. It's kind of fucking shitty. This ends up doing a lot of emotion more towards the end here, which we'll be talking about later. But Thea plays a huge important part of this story, and so does Mammon. Mammon has been teased a little bit in the other books. He does definitely have a lot bigger part in this book than he's had in the last 2 volumes here. I would definitely consider him to be on the Lucifer level, like the Prince of Hell, but I don't like him. I don't like him at all. Lots of crazy stuff happening throughout here. A lot of Mammon confrontation, and we're finding out a lot of things. We're kind of figuring out what their plan is, trying to set up here. This is a Nazi collector. Very interesting story right here. One thing I can say about Spawn is they never give up on the strong stories. They're not afraid to push the boundaries. We've had KKK clans in here, Nazis, child molesters, things in that matter. So definitely a very heavy subject when you're reading Spawn. So always got to say in advance, this is always a mature red comic book when you're reading Spawn here. But Spawn is one of my favorite ongoing series. It's so different. And me loving Venom, it kind of made me love Spawn more, because obviously the things with Todd McFarlane and Venom and then Spawn, so makes sense. But this is just, it's such an amazing story here. Here we are having Spawn dealing with more of the monsters after the effects of killing Malboga. A lot of them really want the throne. A lot of them really want Spawn's powers, but of course he isn't going to give that up without a fight. We, right here, get introduced into some more crazy characters here. We find out that Overkill was hired to take down Spawn, and of course that leaves him asking questions, and he really... it's really crazy having to see him again and knowing that, you know, most of the time if you're dealing with one of Spawn's villains, they are going to come back again and try again. They're really not going to give up here. This issue right here is crazy because this sets up really what happens to Jason Wynn and what really makes him want to take down Spawn and Al Simmons even more. as Spawn says, this is for Al. And he basically makes it to where Jason Wynn goes fucking crazy. Makes his life a living hell for him. But, of course, down the line, that's going to change. Spawn doesn't really want to accept that he has to be the leader of hell now after killing Melboga. But he wants to be the leader of the cities. And, of course, what's the next event that Spawn gets involved into? Vampires. I know, right? What crazy shit. Didn't expect that one, right? But it's pretty insane. It brings in another character as well as we get introduced into Twitch's son, which is Max right here. And he plays a huge part in this story as well. And we get introduced to another character named Dawn, she is one of the vampires, trying to take Max in, which ends up bringing Spawn into Sam and Twitch's life here again. But the vampires are a very big event for Spawn. It ends up playing a huge part of this book. And I mean like huge. And you guys can still see me flipping through chunks of this book here. Issue 114. And we're still dealing with the vampires here. But right here, this is a really emotional event as we find out that Twitch wants to commit suicide. He doesn't really accept himself as he blames him for what happens to his son. I don't want to spoil what ends up happening to his son much, but something really bad happens after being involved with Dawn and the vampires. And Twitch blames himself for it. And so Spawn stops him from committing suicide. It gets pretty emotional. Here we are dealing with the Nadaki storyline here of Mammon talking to this man here. Which explaining kind of his ancestry life here. And, of course, we're finding out that it's a Spawn variant. And, of course, Spawn gets involved with this, too. And Twitch ends up telling him about this. Like, oh, you're getting involved with this. You're getting involved with this shit. Here, this plays a huge part as well. But this is a really awesome story as well. I was a very big fan of this one. They're very, very beautiful, actually. The artwork is pretty incredible as well. Sorry, guys. Let me fix that camera for you guys. But this book never gives up. I will say that. There was like maybe, I can't even tell you what issue it is now that made me kind of slow down reading this a little bit, but it never slows down. This is when things get really emotional, though. Right here, issue 116. This probably... Do you remember this guy right here? Like I was talking about at the beginning, Eddie. But of course, at the same time, we're finding stuff about Cog. So it's like a double whammy kick in the balls, really. It sucks. So, of course, we get the confrontation of Cog and Spawn again. And, of course, Cog calls him out for being kind of a shithead. And, of course, in the middle of this, Spawn finds out that he's dying. We'll talk about that a little more, but right now I want to talk about Eddie coming back into his life. So Eddie is now out of juvenile. Obviously, he's been going in and out of there. Andy's been passed around foster care because they don't have someone to look over after them after Eddie shot his father. It was sad. If you guys don't remember that in the first book here. Later down, it's going to show it again here because I cannot tell you how crazy of an event Eddie ended up pulling here. But Eddie ends up trying to commit suicide here, basically saying his goodbyes to his brother, saying that, I don't know if you're going to get these letters, but you're going to hear a lot of things about me. And it's not going to be good things, but I want you to remember the good times we had before Dad went crazy. And, of course, during all of this, he's still blaming Spawn for his own issues here. And, of course, during this, Spawn wants to save Cog, and obviously he can, but Cog doesn't want him to. He wants to die, but Spawn says, I want to show you something, takes him and shows him that life. And, of course, during this, we get the crazy event. This blew me away that this was happening. This is Eddie getting the powers of the Redeemer. I can't believe heaven pulled that card and chose him. I will say this in advance, so spoilers ahead for the Redeemer. If you guys don't want to know, stop right now. Skip a little bit. Okay? He is the Redeemer for the rest of this book. And that's what makes this so much more emotional, is the pain that he says that Spawn put him and his family through. He was going to come for revenge. And of course, after getting these powers, it gets more crazy from here. Of course, Eddie's spirit is inside the Redeemer. He's still in a coma. It ends up playing some cards on him. And so, of course, when Spawn is talking to Cog here, it gets crazy because the Redeemer comes after him. Spawn's very confused, doesn't understand who this is. He thinks it's Jason Wynn because if you remember, Jason Wynn at one time was the Redeemer as well. There's been another person, I can't remember who it was on the top of my head, but there was someone else before Eddie. But here is Mammoth telling him this story here. And he's telling him the story of his life because Eddie still thinks of his father as a hero, even though his father was not a hero at all. And that's what this story is. He explains of how they were all a happy family, but one day a dark cloud gathered in the great distance, and they say that dark cloud was Spawn. And of course, during all of this, so like I said, Spawn is wondering if that's Jason Wynn, and Eddie's like, you have no idea the pain that I want to put you through. The pain that you put me through, you have no idea what I'm going to be putting you in. And it's emotional. I'm not going to lie. I ended up crying, ended up reading this book because the emotional outfits of Andy and then finding out that heaven chose him to be their soldier. And he has that much power to take down Spawn now. But they didn't have to choose him. They didn't have to make the problems worse. And of course, Mamim's telling him that your father was not a hero. Your father was a piece of shit, and you need to know that. Your father was a drunken brute who beat his children because it made himself feel better. And, of course, Eddie doesn't want to believe this. He doesn't want to believe that Spawn was not the cause of his problems. Spawn was just trying to be there for them, like it shows right here. He was just trying to comfort them. And because Spawn understands what it's like to be in pain. And when Spawn finds out that it's Eddie in here, it tears Spawn apart too. And he finds out right here that what he have done, what Eddie finds out that what he has done is not okay. And of course he tries to help Spawn. And it ends up causing more issues here. So, of course, this is when the story gets a little bit weirder. We're going to jump a little bit past it because I don't want to spoil that part. But the big thing that ends up happening is Al Simmons' personality ends up waking up. It's not Al Simmons is no longer put to rest, and he has his own body now again, and it's really weird. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but of course he sees Eddie flying through. It gets really crazy here. Things that are about to happen get really crazy. Of course, they end up going to hell. Cog, he ends up asking Cog how did it end up happening here. An awesome, brutal fight down happens. There's a lot of great scenery and artwork and coloring in these parts here. Of course, the Redeemer is trying to help Spawn during this because he finds out the Spawn wasn't his issues. But Spawn doesn't really care right now. He has more bigger fish to fry. But of course, the Redeemer blames Spawn for that. But right here, this box, like I said, is very important. This is the last piece of Eden. This was Cog's power. This is what he's had last standing. And he wants Spawn to take that to make a better world. To make something newer. To make a more... a better place for everyone. To finally realize what Spawn was actually... what Cog thought Spawn was actually meant to be there for. And of course, it makes the new garden in hell, but also it releases something really weird. It, like I said, it brings the new personality out of Spawn, and of course, Al's walking around like nothing happened. And it gets weird because, of course, Spawn is looking for Al because he knows that happens. Of course, there's some brutal stuff that happens here. And of course, Wanda gets involved and Terry get involved again because they're getting tired. This is where it gets even more emotional. Like I said, this book is full of emotions. Right here, we find out they get a call saying that someone messed with his grave, and they're tired of it. Wanda is really tired of her not being able to be left alone left alone with Al. She's tired of hearing his name, and it's really sad because honestly, throughout this, she ends up saying that she is tired of Al, that she wished that she was never even met him and had her in his life, and it's really sad. Of course, we get introduced to a new character here. Her name is Neeks. She is Thea's best friend here, best friend or sister, or no, sister. My bad. Okay, it was her sister that's in hell, and it's kind of her fault. No, I honestly cannot remember on top of my head if it was her sister or best friend, but she ends up being the reason why Thea's in hell, and she has to go fix that, but she ends up needing some help along the way. Like I said, a lot of stuff is here in this story. Of course, Neeks finds Al Simmons, and she wants to help him. And so, of course, this gets brought into some other stuff as well. We get introduced into the clown again, which is a huge part of the story. This is when it gets kind of screwed up. I mean, I was really annoyed. Not at the comic book. I was just annoyed that Jason Wynn was able to come back. He is such a screwed up man and doesn't deserve anything really coming towards him for that matter. And of course, right here, we get the confrontation with Clown saying that he's still inside his head and everything. And so they kind of almost merge into one person here, and they make a deal getting him out of there. It's just fucked up. It's really fucked up because Jason Wynn ends up being a huge problem of the book, and it ends up scaring Spawn. Right here, Nyx ends up finding about what power. She wants to know what is within Al. She ends up finding out some things, and of course, opening up, causing this to break whatever is binding, holding Al back. It ends up making her find out that he is Spawn. And crazy shit. She ends up finding out what he really is. And it ends up bringing a big part of the story. Nyx ends up being almost like, I don't want to spoil it yet, but she's a very big part of this story coming up. Lots of things ends up happening to Al Simmons and Spawn. It's very interesting, the way that they are able to do this. They really change the story up to kind of drag your attention more and not to get bored here. Let's go over more so I can explain that a little bit. This artwork is beautiful, guys. Terry is not involved as much as you would think. This part right here is Jason Wynn is wanting to find out everything about Al. They wanting to know the story about everything that happens, goes to Terry, finds out their story, goes to Wanda, finds out that story. And that's what these pages are right here. Here is Wanda's story, explaining what the last day with Al Simmons was like before he ended up not coming home. It's a very emotional thing here. We find out that she doesn't really want Spawn in the life right there. And, what's his name? Jason Wynn ends up coming back strong in this book. When I said, him and Clown have some shit up their sleeve, and it's so bad. So, of course, them being combined into one person now. You're kind of wondering, what do they have up their sleeve here? So, Jason Wynn kind of gets his reputation give back to him. Spawn and Al Simmons are now different personalities. Al Simmons is learning how to control Spawn and be able to summon him in certain ways. It's so crazy. Like, the ways that they're able to do things in this book was so incredible. Mamim really started creeping up on you in this book, but the big person we will talk about before we're done here. The big part of this book is Clown takes over Jason Wynn in such a bad way, and Clown ends up manipulating a whole bunch of people, trying to take over the world here, making his own minions here, and just making Al Simmons a shit show. And of course, all of this puts Al in this really bad situation here. Ends up making him go into a coma, which ends, if you guys remember in the previous stories when Nyx was fixing up Spawn and all that stuff, she ended up saving a piece of Spawn to use for safekeeping, and this is exactly what it was for. She used that piece of Spawn to create her own suit, and that's what creates the She-Spawn here, which is so cool. I thought this was so cool. She looks badass, and of course that pisses off a lot of people in Hell here, as she is trying to use this to go get her friend Thea out of Hell. Of course, the Redeemer's stuck down here. Everyone thinks that's Spawn, so of course, a lot of people want to go fuck her up, because Spawn has beef with a lot of people here. And this is more emotional too, because like I said, this is Eddie still, and he said, "You did this to me. I tried to help you, and you abandoned me to Hell." And of course, what gets emotional throughout this, she meets her father again in Hell. There's a lot of things that try to mess up with her. Because at first, Spawn previously showed her what Hell was like, because she didn't believe in it because she's a witch. But of course, now that she's in here, she doesn't like it. She doesn't like seeing all the pain, the suffering, the death. It's still a lot for her, and she just wants to get Thea and get out of here. But Thea doesn't want to leave. She realizes that she wants to end up just having her whole entire soul just vanquished out of reality. She doesn't want to be a thing anymore. So of course she takes her down. And that was when she went to Hell, she was able to take one person back, and that's why she was able to take Thea. That was the deal with Mammon. She made a whole deal with him. If she got Thea out of Hell, if she was able to get Thea out of Hell, she was gonna give Mammon the powers to be able to control Spawn. That's the big thing of this, and it was so fucking crazy. And of course, since she didn't want to come out, she decided to take the Hellspawn with her, and it was crazy. And it ends up leaving into this huge, crazy entire event here of Spawn, the Redeemer, everyone just fighting for their lives. There's a lot of emotion here, and when it comes down into when we go into issue number 151 later on, it's going to be jumping into some crazy shit here, guys. Like I said, Spawn's pissed after he comes back and finds out that Nyx took his power for her own. I mean, there's so much confrontation with Clown and Spawn trying to figure out that. Ends up bringing back Billy Kincaid again. Mammon's taking Spawn. I mean, shit. So many fucking crazy things happen. I know we talked a lot about this story here, and I don't want to just keep going and spoiling more and more for this, guys. For you, I want you guys to experience this for yourself. But we end up meeting this new master at the end, the Master of Tortures, and it's fucking crazy, guys. This book, it was insane. I mean, I didn't expect myself to keep enjoying this story as much as I did. I thought it was going to get a lot slower after this many issues, but that is the complete opposite. This book is going strong, hard, and I can't wait to pick up the other issues here to continue reading, even though I gotta wait till December now. Hopefully if it doesn't get just delayed to get volume 4 here. But if you guys did enjoy that video, please make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I know that was a longer video, guys. There's a lot of stuff in here. This book is over 1,100 freaking pages. I mean, this is a girthy boy, but we had fun with it. It was a great book. I mean, I cannot wait to read more of Spawn. I'm going to be starting Gunslinger super soon, even though I got to read Spawn Universe number 1 to be able to understand all of that before, because I'm not all caught up yet, obviously. So I got to read that one first to be able to understand everything. But Also, guys, before you head out, don't forget to go to your local comic book stores and pre-order the Exiled #1 by Whatnot Publishing. The book is by Wesley Snipes, Adam Lawson, Keith Arem, and Eskivo. Eskivo is doing incredible old school type artwork, doing pen and penciling on the book there. You got Keith Arem, who was involved in the Spider-Man video games, Call of Duty, Saints Row. Adam Lawson did the Kill Journal, did the 8th. Such incredible stories. And, of course, why not more than anyone? Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes was freaking Blade, for Christ's sake. I mean, who doesn't want to get involved in a book on that, guys? It's a great detective-driven story. 6-issue series. Comes out January 25th, 2023. Don't miss it, guys. Make sure to check out the link in our bios to all of our social media channels. I'm Nate's Cosmic Collectibles. Have a great day.